What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Nice little Saturday. No time to go to Bed Bath & Beyond, but we are here breaking down this 9-game slate. There is a couple games going on now. Josh Norris having a even strength goal. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. But we have a nice little 9-gamer tonight. We have MMA tonight. There's college football. Maybe NBA preseason, I don't know. But we're getting into some serious – when NBA starts next week, there's going to be a lot going on. And as always, joining me, Slim Cliffy, in his Seattle Supersonics gear. What's going on? It's a sweet hat.
Yeah, Rain Man, Sean Kemp. Not a whole lot. Just you failed to mention the Yankees-Guardians game tonight.
Oh, yeah. I'm a Yankees fan, but I just don't have time to watch baseball anymore.
I mean, I'm going to tell you that ALCS has been one of the best baseball series that I can remember watching. It's just been super fun to watch. Hopefully we can get 7 games out of it. Be sure to have that on the second or third screen here tonight. But 9 games ahead of us here tonight. I didn't play much last night, played some of the low dollar stuff like for tickets and everything. I certainly didn't have the Perfidi and Nemestikov Ehlers line. So that ended my night. Not a very good night of hockey. Just in general, Carolina they didn't run Pittsburgh out of the rink, but they were in firm control of that game from start to finish. Winnipeg did beat the piss out of San Jose. I guess Colorado and Anaheim was exciting towards the end, but those things will happen. 3-game Friday night slate, couple real bad teams on the board, but we have some pretty good teams on the board here tonight. Also, we're missing a lot of the top teams. Like Tampa Bay's playing this afternoon, Edmonton's playing this afternoon, Colorado played last night. Like a lot of the lines that would be super expensive are off the board. That means probably pretty spread out ownership here tonight because there are a lot of very viable spots, and there's only really one huge favorite, I think, in the New York Islanders. So I like wide open slates like this.
Yeah, I do too. And I see people still talking about the Yankees. Actually, the craziest Yankees series that I've ever seen, or baseball series that I've ever seen, is one the Yankees actually lost. The 2001 World Series between them and the Diamondbacks. That series was absolute bonkers. So was the ALCS in 2003 and 2004 between them and the Red Sox. But
yeah,
that was
good. You want to talk about that 3-0 series?
I'm fine with it. Listen, you got to give the Red Sox their due there. You beat Mariano Rivera in Game 4 and you come back and win. Mariano Rivera career postseason ERA of 0.7. So if you can beat him, hats off. But anyway, we have a 9-game slate here tonight. I like these slates. As always, let's get into it. Before we do, just wanted to say thank you for all the affiliate support that you guys have given us from the hockey signups. I saw a bunch of MMA signups today, your football signups, your college football signups. Now with NBA starting on Tuesday, I believe, Monday or Tuesday, you can use promo code TIPOFF24. You can have all the tools for $1 up until the 30th, I believe, and then it will renew at the normal price if you choose weekly or monthly. And then if you want Sims All Access, you can use promo code EVERYTHING. That will get you 10% off everything until you decide to cancel it. And as always, if you are looking to go premium in NHL, you can click the link in the chat as well. Use promo code Stochastic15. That will give you 15% off your first week or first month of premium. Let's get into this slate. I was trying to do 2 things at once. My brain can't handle that. I saw F the Dodgers and F the Dodgers. But although I will say the season Shohei Ohtani is having is insane. And if he can replicate that while pitching next year, greatest ever to do it, probably.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love watching Shohei Ohtani play baseball, but F the Dodgers. I kind of feel that way with the Bruins and David Pastrnak. I love watching Pastrnak play hockey, I hope the team never wins a game for the rest of the time. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I hope Dodger Stadium falls into the Pacific since, they left Brooklyn. The fuck, man? Not that Brooklyn's a great place, but better than Los Angeles. New York Rangers with a 3.1 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.4 total. All right, so Toronto going with Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Domi, McMahon on the second line. I will say, Bobby McMahon looks good. Good enough to put Tavares on the third line with Nick Robertson and Pontus Holmberg. And I will say, I don't watch a ton of Leafs hockey in the regular season anyway. I like to watch them crash and burn in the playoffs. But I did catch the Leafs game the other day, and oh boy, does Tavares look slow. I don't know if that was just like, I don't know. He just looked really slow. So he's kind of transitioning into that role onto the power play. He's kind of like not the guy he was a few years ago, probably why you see him down on the third line. But that Nylander, Domi, McMahon line is gasoline. This is an interesting matchup because, like, I'm not going to try to sound like too much of a homer here because the Rangers are a very good team, but the issue is like Igor is an excellent goalie and it kind of masks their issues defensively. So I honestly think like the Leafs are a good play here tonight, and Vegas agrees. They have a 3.4 total. I would imagine the Matthews-Marner line goes out against Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. Like, these teams have to start treating that line as the Rangers' top line because it is easily their top line over the past year and a half. That Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line, good, very, very good offensively. I'd say average defensively. The Rangers don't have the best penalty kill. You get Marner and Matthews on the top power play. I do really like Toronto 1 here. Again, like they haven't broken a slate open. Not that I'm advocating for that tonight, but it's always possible with them. And when they come in with positive leverage, it always makes me nervous. The one thing is you're stacked against Igor, right? And that's really the question that you want to do. In single entry, I might not do it, but in MME with positive leverage, I'm probably getting over the field on Toronto. That second line, we talked a little bit before the show about it. They're 14-1. 4% top two stack percentage, 7.5% projected ownership. I'm kind of interested in that line. I don't know if I'd full stack them, but like if you need a cheap two-man, and I know Nylander's a little bit expensive, you could do like Domi, McMahon, Nylander, something like that. Like the Zibanejad, Kreider, Riley Smith line, like when they had Wheeler there or Rosovic there, they were terrible defensively. When they had Kakko there, they were terrible offensively. Riley Smith kind of puts that line in the middle. They're not going to be a shutdown line by any means. They're probably average at best. So I like a one-off or two-man on that Toronto second line. The Rangers side is where it gets more interesting because like I'm a Stellaris guy and he's played very well this season, but they have struggles on the blue line. Their PK isn't elite, and we were talking about this a little bit before. If your PK isn't elite against the Rangers, it's not going to fare very well. You have a nice stat that you'll throw out when I kick it to you with the Rangers on the power play against Toronto. No one's playing the Rangers' Trocheck line. 11.7% top two stack, 2.4% projected ownership. Again, Panarin's coming off a hat trick in a 4-point game. Trocheck had a 4-point game as well. Lafreniere plays in the last game. Lafreniere played the most of any winger by a minute 40 at 5-on-5. So they're getting their minutes. They're getting their power play time. Lafreniere's on the power play too. I do really like the Rangers Trocheck line. You want to go to Zibanejad, Kreider, Riley Smith. I like them as a filler at 15-3 just because Nylander, Domi, McMahon might be good offensively, but there's no way on planet Earth that this line would be good defensively. So I think if there's a time to fade the Trocheck line and go to Zibanejad, Kreider, Riley Smith, it is here. So yeah, I do really like both top two lines on both sides. It's just a matter of how to get there in your single entry. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to have any of this game in single entry. I haven't ruled it completely out yet, but this is more of a MME for me.
Yeah, I'll start on the Toronto side because I did write them up in the picks article today. Free to read over at stochastic.com. What I wrote is that just 4 games and 41 minutes of 5-on-5, but outshooting the opponent 36-22, high danger chances at 12-7, goals are 3-0. They're doing all that, and Matthews' on-ice shooting percentage, which is not his, but the team's when he's on the ice, is 8.6%. He's been over 13% for 3 years in a row. It's kind of scary to think just how well offensively that they're playing. The fact that, what is it, Matthews has, I think it's 3 points in 4 games, which isn't great, but don't get me wrong. But yeah, there is a world where he has like 5 or 6 points already, just by being normal, by being average, career norms, because they're creating so much offense. Like, they have been phenomenal to start this year. They get lots of ice time. Matthews is shooting as often as he ever has. Like, there's are a lot of reasons to like that Toronto top line here tonight. You mentioned Igor. Like, yes, that's true. Igor is great. Last year in 3 games against the Rangers, Matthews had 4 goals and 7 points.
Yeah.
Trust me, he could.
He did that to everybody.
Yeah, he's good enough to light up anybody. And, in the top stacks tool, 15.8% top 2, 8.9% ownership. I really do like the Toronto top line here. I don't think I like the second line as much as you. One reason, like, I'm not convinced at all that the lines stay together. Like, Bobby McMahon's gone from like healthy scratch to 4th line to 3rd line to 2nd line, which good on him. He's earned it. But that also tells me they have no idea how to order their lines after the Matthews, Marner, Nyes trio. So I'm kind of a little wary there. Like, I do like McMahon as a one-off. I do like, Nylander certainly as a one-off, given the power play status and all that. But I think if I'm stacking the Toronto side, it's either the top line or some sort of power play stack, like take off Nyes, put in Nylander. It's a lot more expensive, but I think it's in play. It's something involving Matthews and Marner, or else I'm probably not stacking at all. On the Rangers side, like, I do think their top 2 lines are definitely both in play. I wrote up Chris Kreider in the picks article today. I'm a little worried about Kreider because he's down to about 17 and a half minutes a game. He's lost ice time from last year. But, that top line with Riley Smith, 17.9 high danger shot attempts per 60 so far this season. Small sample, yes, but they have been generating offense early. Zibanejad's not shooting a lot, which is kind of the problem. But that top line has been generating a lot more offense. They're not great defensively. That's why I kind of like the Toronto side a little bit. But they have been creating more, and, there's no ownership coming in on them. They're very moderate price. 2.9% top 2 stack, 1.6% ownership at 15.3K. But it is the Panarin line I do like better. Again, because of the no ownership reasons, 2.4% ownership, 11.7% top 2 stack. Like, Lafreniere is over 16 minutes a game of even strength ice time. They're playing him a lot, especially like what they're doing often is if he doesn't get a lot of power play time, like on power play 2 or whatever, he'll go out with like the 3rd or 4th line or something like that after a power play, just so that they can get him on the ice more. I don't mind just full stacking Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. I think it's both top lines. I really do like best in this game. I think Rangers 2 is certainly playable, especially where Toronto's penalty kill has struggled last year. They're a bottom 10 penalty kill. This year they've been better, but still a lot of their metrics are around the middle of the league. And the Rangers have absolutely blown them up on the PK over the last couple of years. It's like 130 shot attempts and 16 goals per 60 minutes against Toronto's penalty kill over the last 2 years. Those numbers would lead the league if they could do that against every team over a full season. So I really do like Rangers 1. I honestly think it's Toronto 1 I like best in this game, but both top lines certainly in play.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. Well, maybe, the data doesn't really put into the human factor with Panarin coming off the hat trick. I would imagine that their ownership comes in a little bit more inflated than 2.5%, but still, they're going to have positive leverage. Washington Capitals with a 2.6 total heading into Newark, New Jersey. Debatable if that's a good time or not. The Devils have a 3.4 total. Devils going Hischier, Meyer, Mercer, Hughes, Bratt, Cotter. Bratt wasn't at morning skate because he's feeling a little bit under the weather, but they expect him to play tonight. Washington going back to Ovechkin, Strome, Protas, Wilson, Dubois, Connor McMichael, Mangiapane, Vrana, Hendricks, LaPierre. Now, if you read Cliffy's article, which I don't know why you wouldn't, it's free, Stokastic.com, NHL, click it or ticket. You would know that Jack Hughes actually scores more when he's away from Timo Meier. I feel like that student at school who actually studied for his quiz the first time, because I don't often prepare with other people's material, but I did happen to snag that tidbit to give you a nice little alley-oop today. But I do really like the Hughes, Bratt, Cotter line. Paul Cotter not really out of place there. They're coming in at 17-3, a little bit of negative leverage, like barely over their top two stack percentage. Their top two stack percentage is barely under the Rangers Panarin line. It's a pretty good matchup here against the Capitals. I don't know if Roy's going to be back or not. It doesn't make a massive difference, but I do prefer the Hughes, Bratt, Cotter line to Hischier, Meyer, and Mercer. If you want to play them for salary reasons, that is fine as well. On the Washington side, I don't have a ton of interest on the Capitals. I think if I'm going to do anything, it would be one-offs, a one-off Ovechkin, one-off Wilson, one-off Pierre-Luc Dubois, one-off Mangiapane. But again, like I don't have a ton of interest in the Caps here. There are other road teams that I prefer with higher totals. The Caps have the lowest road total on the slate, the second lowest total on the slate in general, besides the Canadiens, who we'll get to next. So I don't want to make a living stacking them.
Yeah, I'm not going to go long on Washington. I don't have interest in stacking them here tonight. I agree with you. If you want to one-off Ovechkin, I think that's fine. Even Connor McMichael, he's been shooting a fair bit, even though he doesn't get top power play. He's been shooting a fair bit. I think that's fine. But there's the top two stacks are fairly low. Ownership is right in line with them. So it's not like this is a like 0.3% owned, 3% top two stack probability situation. Like they're basically coming in at their top two stack probability, which that just doesn't interest me. The second lowest total on the board and on the road. So yeah, not much from Washington. New Jersey, yeah, it's the top line. I did write up Jack Hughes in the picks article, as you mentioned. The note about Timo Meier is that at 5-on-5, Hughes takes 11.2 shots per 60 minutes. Without Meier on his line, that drops to 9.2 with him on his line. So without Meier, his shot rate goes up basically like 20%, and that's a lot. We talked about how they moved Stefan Nason to the top power play unit as well. I think that's a good move for them. Washington is penalty kill has generally been fine over the last few years. Like that's one thing that they've been able to hang their hat on, but not worried about the Capitals defensively at 5-on-5. Not super worried about them on the PK. That New Jersey top line, as you mentioned, coming in basically bang on their top two stack and ownership percentages, 17,300, which means that you can get another decent secondary stack or you can get an expensive defenseman, those types of things. And if you're worried about Jesper Bratt being sick or whatever, I think that's like a little bit of a fair concern. We've seen a lot of players miss time across the league for whatever illness is running through the league. So if you don't want to play for that reason, I kind of get it, but I really do like that Hughes Bratt Cotter line here. Probably the only line that I would full stack in this game. There are one-offs, like Meyer one-off I think is okay. Nason again one-off is fine. Like I said, McMichael on the other side, but it's for me, if I'm stacking a full line out of this game, it's probably the Hughes line or nothing else.
Yeah, agreed. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.5 total heading into Long Island. That unequivocally blows. The Islanders have a 3.5 total. Islanders let me down the other night. I think they let you down as well. I don't remember if you played them against the Blues, but they did diddly Dukas. Now they're coming in very over-leveraged. Horvat, Barzal, Duclair, 15,700. 10.6% top two stack, 17.4% ownership. My concerns about them are baked into the price. Now, I know it was an overtime game against the Blues, but Horvat and Duclair still barely cracked 17 minutes. Barzal played 21, but in the game previous to that, Horvat was only at 16 minutes. Now, it's baked into the price, 15,700. It still concerns me, but this is an excellent power play matchup. It's a very good 5-on-5 matchup. They're fully correlated. So it's just a matter of if you want to eat the ownership, and I think it's very fair to do that here tonight. They have a 3.5 total. Only the Wild have a higher total on the slate. So they're the highest home total at 3.5. So I'm Islanders 1. It just depends who I'm going to build them with, and just know that there are minutes concerns. I think that second line is also interesting at 14.4, but like they're coming in the 6.5% top two stack and almost 12% ownership. At that point, I'm just going to go straight to the top line. If you want to play our boy Maxime Cat Noises to Splockoff, I think that is perfectly fine since he's on the top power play unit. But again, like you start going down the Montreal depth, and like the matchups just get better. So if you want to play that line, it's perfectly fine. But at that ownership, I want full power play correlation because the Canadiens PK is poopers. On the Montreal side, we were talking about this before the show. You think there is a possibility that both Matheson and Slavkovsky are out? That would basically take my interest down to like a Cole Caulfield one-off. But really, like even if Slavkovsky was in, I didn't have a ton of interest in that top line at 18.4. It is basically Caulfield one-off anyway, but if Slavkovsky's out, I don't even know who moves up. I don't know who's going to be on the top power play unit. So it would most likely just be a Cole Caulfield one-off on the Montreal side.
Yeah, if Slavkovsky is in, I probably don't have a lot of interest in the Habs. The reason is there are two lines in that 18 to 20K range that I like better, and we'll talk about them later in the show. So even if he's in, it wouldn't change a whole lot for me. The reason I said I think Slavkovsky and Matheson might sit, like, one, they did travel with the team. So they are with the team. There is a chance that they both play here tonight. But the thing is after tonight, Montreal only has one game in the next 7 days. And if you have a couple of key guys banged up, giving them a night off tonight, seeing if they can maybe go on Tuesday. If not, at best, you could give them a night off and then they get like 4 days to rest. At worst, you give them 2 games off and they have like 10 days to rest, right? So that's the way that I'm kind of looking at it. But you know how NHLers generally are. It's like, unless their arm is falling off their body, like they'll try to force themselves into the lineup. I also told you I do worry about Slavkovsky because there was video of him kind of wincing and holding his shoulder and working his shoulder at practice. I told you how it looks like he's playing tentatively. He's not as aggressive as he was last year, which was the problem that he had as a rookie, was that he wasn't playing super aggressive. So if he's playing through a shoulder injury, you got to wonder how effective he is in general. And if you look at the defensive numbers for the Habs top line this year, you'd think that they did have an AHLer on the wing because they are getting absolutely crushed. Not a whole lot for me from the Habs. For me, it's about the Islanders side. I did write up the Islanders top line, and I wrote up Sipelkoff in the picks article both, just because Montreal they are so bad. at 5-on-5. And the problem is the penalty kill has honestly been one of the strengths for Montreal this season. But Caden Gooley is for sure not playing tonight, and he is their best penalty killer on defense. And if you take Gooley out, it puts guys in positions that they shouldn't be. So I really do like the Islanders top line. They are coming in. They are going to be heavily owned because the Islanders are the biggest favorite on the board. Montreal is very, very hobbled right now, not very good besides. And, they're perfectly correlated. The ice time concerns, I think, are valid. The last game, I think one thing that happened, there was only 3 power plays total in the game. And we know how the Islanders kind of like to roll 4 lines a little bit at even strength. So, without a lot of power play time, they didn't get their normal ice time. The game before that was Colorado when they were up 4-0 in the first 20 minutes or whatever it was. So, they just spread out the ice time. The last game, I think that is probably where my concern would be, but I have no concern about the Islanders top line here. Honestly, if you want to drop down to the Islanders second line, I do think they're in play. They have played very well together so far this season. That Islanders second line, 15.3 high danger attempts per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. League average is about 11.5. So, they're about 30% better than that. That's really good. Brock Nelson is leading the team in shot volume on a per minute basis, and he's still getting quite a bit. He's one of the reasons Barzal and company aren't getting a lot of ice times, because that second line is, and Siplikov is on the top power play unit with him. So I think both Islanders lines are in play. In a nutshell, I would just go Horvat, Barzal, Duclair. I want the perfect correlation against Montreal, who is not taking as many penalties as they were at this point last year, but still taking a fair bit of penalties. But I think both Islanders top lines are in play for sure.
Yep, as my internet decides to buffer, we will continue. Vancouver Canucks with a 3.2 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.8. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Okay. The Canucks decided to not finally, it's one game, but they moved up to Brusque to play with JT Miller and Besser. Pettersson is going to be with Garland and Hoglander. That line is very, very cheap at 12,500. The Flyers are a pretty good defensive team. They have a good penalty kill. I don't have tremendous faith in their goaltending, which would be why I would consider Vancouver here. Besser, Miller, DeBrusk fully correlated on the power play. Flyers send out Frost, Mitchkov, Tippett against top comp. Usually at home, it is Torts, and it's only been a couple games, so that obviously can change. But you give me a fully correlated line with JT Miller and Brock Besser on it, I will be interested automatically. Pettersson, Garland, Hoglander at 12.5, coming in very over-leveraged at 14.2% with a 4.5% top 2 stack. I get it because it's an Elias Pettersson line, and he does have good numbers with Nils Hoglander. Again, I don't mind them, but if you are putting a lineup together that fits too easily with them, just be aware of what you're doing. I'm okay with them. I prefer the Besser, Miller, DeBrusk line. On the Flyers side, probably a Konechny one-off for me, a two-man with Joel Farabee, something like that. You want to go back to the Mitchkov line, I think that's fine. The one thing that does worry me there is they will be seeing a fair bit of JT Miller, Brock Besser. That line has generally been very good defensively. Again, Vancouver does have issues in net. Hopefully it's Lankinen. But I think, for me on the Flyer side would be the Frost Mitchkov line, Konechny one-off, and then on Vancouver, it's Besser, JT Miller, DeBrusk.
First thing I'll say is that we don't really know what the Flyers lineup is going to look like because they played in Seattle 2 nights ago. Of course, their lines got nuked during the game. They flew home yesterday, didn't have morning skate today. We really don't know. they've been pretty good about keeping Frost and Tippett together. So I think that's probably at least one pair of players we're going to see. But we don't really know what the lineup is going to be like. In fact, just the third period alone and Matvei Michkov's 5-on-5 shifts, this is who he played with. Shift number 1, Lawton and Couturier. Shift number 2, Luchenko and Forster. Shift number 3, Frost and Tippett. 3 5-on-5 shifts to start the period, 3 completely different sets of players. This is what we're dealing with now. It's just kind of frustrating. I think like Frost, Tippett, and Michkov is definitely where I would go if I was full stacking. They are getting a lot of ice time. You get the power play correlation. There's not a lot of ownership coming in on them. If a full line gets there, I can't believe the Ryan Poehling line did what they did the other night. That's a whole other story. But Frost and Tippett have generally been good offensively together. Canucks have looked shaky, man. I posted about it on Twitter this morning. Whenever Quinn Hughes is off the ice, they look like a bottom 5 team in the league. And when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, they look like a cup contender. It's that drastic. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it in one game. We'll see what happens. But Tippett, Matvei, Michkov, and Frost is the stack that I would go for on the Flyers. I do have a little bit of interest in Vancouver here. This is a 3.2 total on the road. It's higher than the Rangers, which is the team we talked about at the top of the show that we like so much. And it's the same as the Bruins, and the Bruins top line is going to be one of the highest owned lines on the board tonight. DeBrusk makes them a perfectly correlated power play. So they're going to get, I think, a reasonable amount of ownership considering they're not like super expensive. Pettersson, Garland, but the thing is as you mentioned with the Flyers, really good penalty, like one of the best penalty kills in the league last year. Looks good, looks fine again this year, at least without Fedotov in net. And Höglander and Pettersson have generally been pretty good together. Going back to last year, 380 minutes for Höglander and Pettersson at 5-on-5, 14.5 high danger shots for per 60, 8.2 against, 3.6 goals per 60 minute. Like really, really good offensive numbers at 5-on-5. It sucks they're coming in with so much ownership. I would probably go to Miller, Besser, and DeBrusk just because of the perfect power play correlation. But if you want to do like even just one off Connor Garland's like 3rd or 4th on the team in ice time per game. He's getting 18 and 19 minutes a game. I think something like that is fine. I kind of like the Vancouver side better than the Flyers side, but there are playable lines on both sides here.
And Ray Rock, our resident Flyers fan, says it's Frost, Konechny, Michkov, Tippett on the second line. I went to go look for that. I couldn't find it. I'd take his word for it. He's way more in tune with the Flyers than I am. Again, it's Torts. We just don't know. So wait for warm-ups there. It's the Flyers. I don't know what else to say besides it's the Flyers. Minnesota Wild with a 3.6 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 2.8 total. We need to hold a moment of silence for my boy Kent Johnson, who is probably out for most of the season now. Did get to play him a couple times, but now I can't. I mean, I still could, but that would just be egregious. Looks like Joel Eriksson Ek will be back. Ryan Hartman is a game time decision. He's down in the third line now in power play 2, so that is a minor point. It is Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello, Marco Rossi, Boldy, Joel Eriksson Ek, Marcus Johansson. Looks like Columbus is going Monahan, Chinnikov, Marchenko, Fantilli, JVR, and Danforth. Didn't Chinnikov get hurt? Or someone's game time decision?
Yeah, but he was at morning skate.
Okay. Yeah. G coming back from a broken nose. You hate to, I mean, there's worse things to break, but okay. On the Minnesota side, Minnesota has the highest total on the slate. They've been decent 5-on-5, or Columbus has been decent, at least defensively 5-on-5, but the penalty kill has been bad. Minnesota has a pretty good power play. I'm perfectly fine going Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi. I'm also perfectly fine going Jorickson X Boldy. I think what my favorite thing to do is just power play stack. And you're going to want to have Kirill Kaprizov in that stack. So you can do Kaprizov, Boldy, Jorickson X, Zuccarello, Kaprizov, Jorickson X, Boldy. As long as you have Kaprizov in the power play stack, I think you're doing fine. Unless you obviously just can't fit them, then I think it's okay to go Joe Eriksson, Boldy, Faber, since you get the 5-on-5 correlation with Joe Eriksson and Boldy. So I think Minnesota 1's fine on its own, Minnesota 2's fine on its own. I prefer a power play stack just because there's going to be so much ownership, and it is it's a way to get a little bit different in high ownership. On the Columbus side, I kind of like that top line, Monahan, Chinnikov, Marchenko. They, against Buffalo, they ran over whoever they're out against. That's not even hyperbole. I think that their Corsi for percentage in that game was almost 70%. And, Minnesota's nothing to ride home defensively about. They have issues of their own. Let's not pretend like they're an elite defensive team. I do like Monahan, Chinnikov, Marchenko here. I think a one-off Fantilli is in play, but it is the Columbus top line for me and Minnesota power play.
Yeah, just to put a point on it, in the 4 games Columbus has played, on ice Corsi for Chinnikov, 82%, 55%, 74%, 75%. They've been one of the best lines in the league to start the season. Yeah, I'll start on the Minnesota side. If I'm stacking, it's probably the Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi line for the reason that Kaprizov is playing 23 minutes a game or something to start the season. He's at 22.58 per game.
That's insane.
He's getting a lot of ice time. I mean, they have to. This is not a deep team. So if I'm stacking an even strength line, it has to be the line with the guy playing 23 minutes a game. So Minnesota 1 for sure. Problem is they're going into that Werenski-Provorov pairing, and they've generally kept them away from each other even when Werenski's been healthy. But in their sample together, Werenski and Provorov have generally been pretty good. 71 shot attempts per 60, 39 shots per 60 minutes on ice with those two on the ice over the last couple seasons for Columbus. I'm kind of with you. I do like the Minnesota top line, especially because Minnesota's power play over the last few years has generally been good. Columbus penalty kill has generally been bad. I think this is a good power play matchup for Minnesota and Kaprizov in particular. If you want to just go to the second line, and I wrote up Matt Boldy. Boldy's getting a lot of ice time too. One off Matt Boldy, especially on FanDuel, I think makes a lot of sense here tonight. He's projecting super well. I kind of like the Columbus side here a little bit. Their price went up from last game, but they're still under 15K on DraftKings, and their ownership's only 6%. Now that Kent Johnson is out, this is basically, they were kind of a one-line team anyway, but this is basically a one-line team now. You know what I mean? It's Columbus's top line is going to have to do everything. I still don't have a ton of faith in the Minnesota penalty kill. They haven't been god-awful or anything to start this season. But they are giving up something like 125 shot attempts against per 60, which would put them at the bottom of the league if they did that over a full season. And Columbus power plays look decent to start the year, certainly better than in recent seasons. Overall, the Minnesota top line projects the best for me in this game, and I think there's reason for that is because of Kaprizov and Zuccarello. But considering the price, which is still under 15K, and Marchenko, Monahan, especially with Kent Johnson out now, that Marchenko, Monahan, Chinnikov line is probably going to have to play 19, 20 minutes again. Perfectly correlated on the power play at home. 2.8 total is not great, but it's not awful. And with as well as they've been playing, it's one of those, I want to keep riding this bus until the wheels fall off. You know what I mean? It's until they start playing poorly, I don't really understand why you'd move away from them, especially in a matchup where the power play is a good one. So I do like the Columbus top line here. 4.6% top two stacks, 6% ownership. They're priced at a spot where you can still go play those 18, 19K lines. I think this Columbus top line is my favorite line in this game, considering price and ownership and all that. The best projected line is going to be Minnesota 1.
Yeah. And you just said Columbus is a one-line team, basically. So a 2.8 total. If they do hit that total, it's probably going to be pretty concentrated.
I mean, they still have technically a second line, but when you have Zach Aston Reese playing with Adam Fantilli on the second line, I think that should tell you that Columbus is down to a one-line team now.
Oh, yeah. Got nothing else to add there.
I mean, Carolina, think about this. Zach Aston Reese was picked up off waivers, like 2 weeks ago, and now he's on the second line.
Yeah, and Kevin LeBanc was on the second line too, and they sniped him from Czech Republic, from the Devils, and they had to fly him into the country. Pour one out for the homie Kent Johnson. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.2 total, heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 2.8 total. We have the first this game blows of the evening. Carolina back-to-back on the road. Going Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, Netchis, Roslovic, Kotkaniemi. The Kotkaniemi, Roslovic, Netchis line did some work yesterday, at least in the box score. The Blues, man, they're just boring. They're bad and boring. It's just an awful combo. And like you said on the other show, until they put together Buchnevich, Kyrou, Thomas, I don't have a ton of interest. You want to one-off Buchnevich? You want to one-off Kyrou? Sweet. Go ahead. I'm not going to be stacking any Blues line here. I don't care. Carolina's back-to-back on the road. They're still a good team. They have 2 decent goalies. I'm pretty much down to one-offs on the Blues. On the Carolina side, it's a bit more interesting because Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis are only 17,100. That price doesn't even make sense to my brain. It's still registering. We've seen last year, just for example, Aho, Jarvis, Gensel push over 22K at times. And if Svechnikov if he starts hitting the net more often, which is an issue that he's had dating back to last year, I think they'll get above 20K. The Blues don't take a lot of penalties, as you saw in the Islanders game. When they do, they're not great, but Carolina 1 is fully correlated. If anything in this game, it would be Carolina 1. You want to one-off Netchis, I think that's fine. I just don't have a ton of interest in this game.
Yeah, I'm not in so much on St. Louis. I'm never going to say no to a one-off Pavel Buchnevich, especially where he's as long as he stays under 6K, I think it's fine. Jordan Kyrou certainly at his price is fine. Zach Bolduc has been shooting a fair bit, but this is a pretty bad matchup, and it's another one of those situations Carolina's up 2-0 in the second period. I can see Bolduc getting moved down pretty quickly. I don't have confidence he's going to stay on that line. He's fine as a one-off, but no, I don't have a ton of interest in the St. Louis side. It's the Carolina side that I'm definitely more interested in. You're right about that top line. Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, 17,100, 5% ownership against a 8% top 2 stack percentage. So there's good leverage here. St. Louis is not a team that I'm worried about defensively for any reason. The only concern would be we saw Joel Hofer the other night. What was it, a 34 save shutout? Both their goalies are good enough to do that. That's the concern. As far as the matchup goes, I'm not that worried about it. You're right about Svechnikov. Svechnikov is at 28 shot attempts per 60 to start the season and 11 actual shots. Should be closer to 13, 14 if it's normal. He didn't play a lot last night. He's only at 16.5 minutes per game to start this season. It's a little bit of a concern. He hasn't played 18 minutes in a game yet, but I really do like that top line. Not worried about any sort of matchup concerns on the St. Louis side. Carolina 1, certainly in play for me here. If you want to drop down to Carolina too, I don't get why you would, right? This isn't a night where we have a 24K Tampa 1 or something. You don't need a sub 10K line. You want a one-off Natchez, like that's fine or whatever. I don't see a reason, or even Will Carrier on the third line. I think those types of plays are fine as one-offs. But if I'm stacking anything in this game, it's Carolina 1, or else probably just moving along.
Yeah. This game sucks. Buffalo Sabres with a 3.1 total. Heading into Chicago, the Blackhawks have a 2.9 total. Joey Anderson out. Andres Athanasiou in. That is a big deal. On the Buffalo side, Benson's a game-time decision. The coach said there are players very sick, and some of them are going to sit. Did they say who they were? Niet. So this is bad because I'll let you hit on the point with Joey Anderson, but Jason Dickinson's numbers without Joey Anderson are bad, or not like awful, but way worse than they are than when Joey Anderson's in. That would give me interest in Thompson, Tuck, Peterka, like a lot of interest. But the coach saying that there are people who are sick and there are people who are going to be out and didn't say who it was makes it tough from the standpoint that if you play Buffalo 1 here and one of those or two of those guys are out, there are only 2 other games after that: Boston, Utah, and Calgary, Seattle. Ugh. So, like, you would have to leave some expensive late defensemen in there and hope that you can swap around if those guys are out. It's just like, on paper, if they're all playing, I do really like the Buffalo top line. I also like a Dylan Cousins one-off. He's been shooting a lot, and he's been playing a ton of minutes. But again, those coaches' comments are pretty scary from the fact that this is not a early lock game, and there isn't great options after that. I am maybe going to work in some swaps because I do really like Buffalo 1 in this matchup. I'll see what I can swap around to or whatever, but Buffalo 1 definitely in play for me, assuming they're all healthy. On the Chicago side, it would be that top line, Bedard, Teravainen, and Foligno. Like, I was fading them the other night. It didn't destroy me, but it wasn't ideal. I do like Bedard here. If you want a full stack, you can, but I would lean more towards a Bedard one-off than anything. And again, I do really like Buffalo 1. The coach speak does kind of scare me off. Is Jack Quinn no more? He is going to be on the second line, assuming he doesn't have whatever is going through the locker room with Yuri Kulich. I do like him, but minutes are going to be concerned because it seems like they're trying to figure out Quinn, Benson, Kulich. They're kind of rotating, kind of like a utility player in baseball. So, like, while I like Quinn, his minutes are concerns. I'd rather just go to a Cousins one-off or Buffalo 1.
Yeah, I'll start on the Buffalo side. It does kind of suck that literally anybody in the lineup could be out here tonight. We just don't know. We won't know until warmups. Like the swap, we'll talk about Utah in a bit. The swap you could make is going from Buffalo 1 down to Utah. They're like $800 cheaper, the Utah top line. So that is one swap you can make. Other than that, you're just going to have to mix and match players. But, JJ Peterka jumping back onto the top power play unit means a lot because now you actually have at least 2 guys on the top power play on the Buffalo side. Not coming in with much ownership, under 5%. 3.1 total. It's the same as the Rangers that we talked about earlier in the show. We really like the Rangers top line. It's a 3.1 total here. And normally they send the Jason Dickinson line out when they're at home. Usually a pretty good defensive line. But what I mentioned to you before the show is that the numbers get a lot worse without Joey Anderson on his line. They allow in the neighborhood of 30% more shot attempts against and 30% more expected goals against when Dickinson doesn't have Anderson on his line. Now, I looked at his line mates without Anderson last year. A lot of it was like Colin Blackwell and Nick Foligno. I think Mikheyev is better defensively than those guys, but it's nothing that I'm super concerned about. And then Ryan Donato on the other side, like that doesn't concern me either. Like I don't mind this matchup for Buffalo 1 at all. The concern is that we get to warm-ups and it's like, sorry, Tage Thompson and Jordan Greenway and Beck Malenstein are all not playing tonight. Buffalo's running an 11-7 lineup or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's going to be that drastic, but I do have concern. I'm concerned that they didn't have Benson in the line rushes, and the coach was like, yeah, Benson's probably playing tonight because a lot of guys are really sick. Like, thanks, man. In a nutshell, I really do like Buffalo 1, assuming they're all together in warm-up, just leave them together. If they're not, maybe you could swap to a different Buffalo combination or just swap to the Utah top line later in the slate. But I do like Buffalo 1 here. On the Chicago side, Chicago top line, I think, is in play. It's weird, man. That top line's playing legitimately well, which I never thought I'd see that from a Chicago line this season.
I mean, Taravana's a good player. He just didn't have a role in Carolina. He was like a tweener.
Yeah. But even with Nick Foligno there, 64 shot attempts for, 53 against per 60, 7.2 high danger chances for, 5.4 against per 60. They're generally carrying the play. Now it's a little over 50 minutes. It's a handful of games. So I'm not going to read a whole lot into it, but it's not like Buffalo is a team that I'm super concerned about. It's kind of notable. Chicago does have a 2.9 total. It's not super high, but it's not nothing. And it's also one of those, Chicago does get to 3 goals tonight. I don't think it's going to be on the back of, a Lucas Reichel double dong or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, I might have just tempted fate there. So I do like Chicago 1. Buffalo's penalty kills looked a little shaky, notably their goaltending. One thing I also noticed, Buffalo's not blocking a lot of shots this year. A lot of the shots they're allowing are getting through clean to the net, which is generally not what you want. So I do like both top lines here. I have Buffalo 1 rated higher. My concern is just that we're gonna get to warm up, and it's like, oh, sorry, Tage Thompson has dysentery or something like that. So that's my one concern. But at least we have a Utah late swap we can drop down to.
It's gonna be like the Oregon Trail at warm-ups. Tage Thompson dysteria out. But yeah, no, that kind of throws a wrench into my plans. But no, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, as Mike Tyson famously said.
Flyers just said Torts isn't even doing a pregame media availability, so we literally have nothing on the Flyers until warm-ups.
Fucking love Torts, man.
I love that.
Boston Bruins with a 3.2 total heading into Utah. The Soakers have a 2.8 total. I hate this game. And I hate it for not because the teams aren't good.
I'm unsure how good or bad either of these teams are.
Why what it is. They're Boston's look bad to start the season. Bad. But Utah, without Dursey, once you get past Sergachev, is a mess. So, I don't want to pay $20,500 for Pasternak, Lindholm, Zacha. They've been bad 5-on-5. Bad. Very, very little generated. Pasternak one-off always in play because that guy is ridiculous. Josh doesn't like any game. I don't like anybody. I don't like any games. I don't like anybody. I'm just Oscar the Grouch, and I put a smile on my face because I have Elmo instead of Oscar the Grouch, but I'm really am the Grouch. But Pasternak one-off, I think, is fine. $20,500 for that line, I just can't do. $15,700. They are fully correlated. Utah's penalty kill is bad, so I get it from that standpoint. Lindholm has not acclimated very well to Pasternak, which is weird because he's played with Kachuk, he's played with Gaudreau, he's played with very good players. He just, I don't know. Maybe he's lost a step. I don't know. I don't like the way that line looks 5-on-5, but it's playable because they're fully correlated. Utah's penalty kill sucks. Do I want to play a line with Marchand Coyle and Justin Brazeau on it? No. And then, I think like this slate doesn't require a 9K line, but like Frederick and Geeky or I forget how to pronounce it. I'm not even going to attempt it right now because I'm fired up. But like, I don't mind a Trent Frederick one-off, but it's just like not necessary on this slate. Now, on the Utah side, Yamamoto is in. Doesn't really matter. I just wanted to say Kyler Yamamoto because he once played with McDavid and couldn't do anything with McDavid. 18-8 for the top line of Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton is a little expensive for me, but they still have a 6.2% top two stack, 1.1% projected ownership. It's an ownership thing. And like Boston has not looked good defensively. Their goalies have had issues because Swayman signed like 13 minutes before the regular season started, and Korpisalo has looked awful. So I do really like Utah 1 here. Will I get to them in single entry? I'm not sure, but I much prefer Utah here than I do Montreal 1, and they're in the same price range. I'd much rather play Utah here. Utah 2, Cooley, Genther, McBain. It's a minutes issue. Like, I'm fine with a Genther one-off, but like, they're kind of in that boat with Seattle, which we'll talk to next. I like the line, just like I like the Wright, McCann, Everlay line. They just don't play minutes. You know what I mean? It's an issue. You want to go to Krause, Doan, Kerfoot? I don't really like them. It would be Utah 1 or Utah, Genther, Cooley, McBain. I would lean towards the top line just because they're fully correlated. They're going to get their minutes. On the Boston side, like, I get the case for playing Boston 1 here, fully correlated. But show me something 5-on-5 before I feel comfortable putting you in my single entry lineup.
Here's the thing with Boston. I swear to God, this is exactly where things stand right now. Boston has played 5 games. In those 5 games, they've given up more high-danger shots per minute than the San Jose Sharks have this season. And they've been given up more goals per minute than the Montreal Canadiens have this season. It's 5 games, but again, this is why I said I'm not sure how good Boston actually is. It's because they have not looked good whatsoever to start this season. And like, let's not pretend like this was a super elite team last year. Like, their goals against was 5th in the league, which is, don't get me wrong, that's pretty good, but it's not super elite. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't a Florida. This wasn't a Winnipeg. And if Lindholm and Zadorov don't really improve the lineup, they are just getting worse. Like, we'll see where things stand maybe a month from now. But considering there's no ownership coming in on Utah at 1.1%, 6.2% top 2 stack probability, if you're 20 maxing MMEing, I think this is one of those spots where you come in over the field. If you're MMEing like 2 or 3%, Utah 1, I think makes a lot of sense to me in this matchup. So I don't mind Utah 1. If single entry 3 max, I think like I do have Buffalo 1 ahead of them just because I don't have Chicago rated very highly. But I think, if you do play Buffalo, this is the swap that you make if Buffalo's top line isn't together for whatever reason at warm-up. So I think Utah 1 is very much in play here. Other than that, I don't think I'm full stacking anything. I worry about ice time. Like, even the top line isn't getting a ton of ice time so far this season. You're talking like 18 to 19 minutes. Genther and Cooley are like around the 15-minute mark, if not under that. Like, that's not a lot of ice time. They're priced as they're not getting a lot of ice time, but that also includes Jack McBain, which making a stack with Jack McBain is just something else. So I think it's Utah 1 or bust. On the Boston side, here's the thing. If you want to look at, like, again, we're not looking at a huge sample of games yet. So far this season, we're looking at 5 games for both Utah and Boston. These are two of the four most penalized teams in the league so far this season. Now, you don't want to read a lot into just the 5 games, but Utah or Boston and Arizona were two of the 5 most penalized teams in the league last season. So they're kind of just picking up where they left off last year. And Utah's top line perfectly correlated. Boston's top line perfectly correlated. Utah really hasn't looked all that good defensively to start this year. I think they've outscored some of their defensive issues. Utah is going to be without Sean Durzi. They're already without John Marino. Like, this was not a good blue line last year, and now they're missing 2 of their top 4 defensemen now. So I think Boston 1 is in play, but I'm going to be honest. I think I'd rather just take the home team and take Utah here, especially if I have a Buffalo stack that I need to swap off of for health reasons.
Yeah. And like MME, Boston 1, completely fine. They've just been bad 5-on-5. But again, Utah has a lot of issues. So single entry, I agree. I prefer the Utah side here. It still sounds so weird saying Utah. I want to say the Jazz. So bad. Little Karl Malone. Calgary Flames with a 2.8 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken. The 3.2 total. What a late night hammer this is.
Late night hammer to the skull is what it is.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the nail. I don't know. I like the Wright, Eberle, McCann line. I like them in real life. For DFS, I can't do it. Shane Wright played 12-30. Jordan Eberle and Jared McCann. They played 14 minutes each. They were amongst the 3 lowest Kraken at even strength for minutes played. I can't do it at 14-3. I would need at least 15 minutes. At that point, I'm going to play the Islanders second line for $100 more. Because Brock Nelson will get his minutes. Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, Schwartz. I was telling Cliffy about it the other day, and he just did not want to hear about Chandler Stevenson. This guy played over 20 minutes the other night. He played 8 at 5-on-5. I don't understand how that's possible. So, I don't really like that line because Stevenson sucks. On paper, I like Beniers, Burakovsky, Tolvanen. They're cheap enough where, if they get 13, 14 minutes, it's fine. But you don't need a $10,200 line in the slate. So what are we even doing here? We're just kind of hanging out. So I guess the interest for me would be on the Calgary side. Oh, sorry, I just threw up in my mouth. I don't even want to play them either. Seattle isn't a terrible team, but they're just kind of there. I don't know how to describe them. If anything, it would be Kadri, Kuzmenko, Coronado. I don't think you need a full stack. I think a one-off Kadri is fine. A two-man with Kuzmenko is fine. A one-off Connor Zary is fine. And again, you don't need a filler line cheap enough for Mantha, Pospisil, Huberdeau. So, minutes or price is just a concern here. So, if anything, it would be Kadri, Kuzmenko. And, I just don't really want to play them.
Yeah, it sucks because it just seems like not a bad matchup for either team, I don't think, but also 3 very meh but playable lines. You know what I mean? Playable in a certain sense because none of them are really that expensive. Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, and Schwartz, they'll probably go out against the Kadri Kuzmenko line, which I think will be the worst defensive line that Calgary has. Stevenson does play a lot of minutes. He just doesn't shoot. The reason Stevenson had DFS value in Vegas was because he would get a ton of assists playing 20 minutes a game. His line mates aren't going to play that much with him. You know what I mean? He just plays at different strengths. He's the only guy from his line on the top power play unit. That's kind of my concern here. Honestly, they're not even I was telling you, Seattle's actually rated fairly well for me their previous few games. They don't rate well for me here tonight. So I think if you want a one-off McCann, if you want a one-off Tolvanen, those types of things is fine. I don't have a lot of interest in single entry stacking Seattle here tonight. I think the 3.2 total is more indicative, like any of their 4 lines can score. Like this isn't Columbus, you know what I mean? Where if Columbus gets 3 goals, I imagine their top line is going to be pretty involved, if not their top defenseman. If Seattle gets 3 goals, like it could be Jamie Alexiak, Brandon Montour and Yanni Gord. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of the way it is. On the Calgary side, I think it would be the top line I would have interest in for this reason is that Kadri and Kuzmenko are both on the power play together. And Seattle's penalty kill has actually been shaky to start the year. It's not just a goaltender thing either. They're allowing a ton of shots on the PK. Whether that gets better as the season goes on, we'll see. But Calgary's power play has been, let's say, efficient. Another way of putting it would be riding a hot shooting percentage. But against a bad penalty kill that started off pretty rough, I think that would be the reason why you'd want to play Calgary's top line. The thing is like at 14,700, the Zibanejad line is $600 more expensive. You know what I mean? And I would probably rather go play Zibanejad, Kreider, and Riley Smith. I'm with I certainly would rather go play the Columbus top line, the Marchenko, Chinnikov, Monahan line. So like there are just other lines in that 14 to 15K range that I'd rather play, but if anything, it'd be the Calgary top line.
Yeah. Let's talk about some defensemen. I have nothing else to add. Like that game sucks. There are some good games on the slate. It just we started good and we just increasingly the suck factor went up. At the top of the board, we have Werenski, John Carlson, Seth Jones, Adam Fox, Mackenzie Weegar, Dougie Hamilton. Werenski's been playing 26 minutes a night. I think his price at $7,300 is perfectly warranted. This is a decent spot. Seth Jones also playing a ton of minutes. I'm good with him at $6,700. Like Adam Fox, he had 3 assists last game on the power play. No peripherals, and only played 19 minutes. This is a little bit of a concern. So, like, at the top of the board, Werenski, Seth Jones, for me, like, Weegar is fine. I wish he got a little bit more minutes. Like, Rasmus Anderson's been playing more than him. And then Dougie, like, he's been wildly unlucky in terms of the score sheet. He has 1 assist on the season, but I think he's been on the ice for 12 goals or more. Like, that's insanely unlucky for him. So I don't mind going back to Dougie here. I think I'll be living in the mid-range and cheap guys, though. Who are you liking?
Yeah, Werenski at the top for me. And then, like, Jones or Dahlin right after them, both from the same game, but I think both very much in play. I also have Weegar just under those 3. I still like Weegar. Like, I wish he was playing more minutes, but he's still putting up a lot of shots and blocks in the minutes that he is getting. Like, that's kind of the thing. Mid-price range, like Dobson, like, obviously. He's not getting a lot of minutes either, but it's also the best matchup on the slate. So, but just expect a lot of ownership on Dobson. I wrote up Mikhail Sergachev in the picks article. In the game that Sean Durzi got hurt, he played over 28 minutes. And then the next game he played just under 27 minutes, I think, or just under 28 minutes, I think it was. Like, Sergachev could honestly play 30 minutes here tonight. So I think he makes a lot of sense. Colton Parayko at home against Carolina. Like, if there's a guy that I think could put up 5+ blocks here in a game, it's like Parayko's certainly at the top of the list. Brandon Montour for Seattle. With Vince Dunn out, he's going to have to play a fair amount of minutes, I imagine. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, running the power play under 4K, like him for cheap. Lane Hudson for Montreal. I think he's fine to play either way. He played a ton of minutes when Matheson left the game the other night. Like, Hudson was over 30 minutes in that game. Now, is because they had 5 defensemen healthy with Matheson out, but he played 7 more minutes than Caden Gooley did, and Caden Gooley's not playing tonight. Like, Hudson, he's another guy that's probably going to be between 25 and 30 minutes if Matheson is out here tonight. So him for sure, especially with top power play time. I think Ivan Provorov, given how well that pairing is played with Werenski, makes some sense. Philip Hronik is very cheap as well. Adam Larson for Seattle. Again, another one of those guys that probably should play a little bit more with Vinny Dunn out. For the cheap guys, Alex Vlasic, I'll mention him from Chicago. He's actually looked fine to start the season, I thought. I've only watched one Chicago game, so what do I know? Mike Kesselring, again, from Utah. As long as they're missing Sean Durzi, and I thought at least offensively, Kesselring's looked fine. He's always going to be in play for me, so I'll mention Kesselring as well.
The one that I'll add is Dmitry Orlov. He's been playing over 20 minutes a night at 2,700 because that third pair of Chatfield and I forget who's with Chatfield, but they just have not been playing a bunch. So Orlov is kind of hit or miss, but at 2,700, you can definitely take a stab there. Let's talk about some aliens in between the nets. Top of the board, we have Semyon Varlamov, Jacob Markstrom, Philip Gustafsson, Jeremy Swayman. And it's probably going to be Pyotr Kochetkov for the Hurricanes. I like Markstrom here at the top of the board. I think Philip Gustafsson is definitely playable. I think he's the Wild's best goalie. Will he play? Will he get 50 starts this season? No, but Markstrom, Gustafsson at the top of the board. I'm okay with Joey Decord. I'm a Stellaris guy. I don't know if tonight's a great night for that because one, the Rangers have a very good power play, and sometimes on the road they tend to have shot volume issues. So I think, at the top it would be Markstrom, Gustafsson, Decord, Igor at 7,400. Like at that price, you have to consider it. It's 10 Vladar net tonight. Lovely. If I'm spending down other than Igor, which, I don't know if I need to go below Igor, it would be Joel Hofer, but that's really about as low as I'll go.
Old Danny Boy's net for the Flames, is he?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Give me those sweet 12 minutes of Shane Wright tonight.
Oh, that's really unfortunate. Maybe I have to reconsider Seattle here. For the expensive goalies, the two goalies that I have are Grubauer and Markstrom. I'm not super concerned about the Washington offense. I am concerned a little bit about shot volume against Markstrom, but it is what it is. For Decord, like a lot of Calgary's success has been because their power play shooting 30%. Like if once their power play cuts that in half, which it will eventually, not super concerned about them being a high scoring offensive team. I do like I won't say cheap goalies, but cheaper goalies here tonight. Kevin Lankinen's at the top of the board for me. Wrote about him in the picks article. Because he's been a backup goalie, it's not a huge sample, but he's basically been a top 20% of the league goalie by save percentage, goals saved above expected, stuff that we look at, or like over the last few seasons. It's only like 37 starts or something like that. So again, not a big sample, but he has played well. Mrazek, I think, is fine for Chicago. Soderblom is fine for Chicago. Given that, Buffalo might be missing some guys here tonight. But St. Louis that I do like here, Joel Hofer down at 7,200, coming off a shutout. We know how Carolina likes to pump the volume of shots. And like even Joel Blomqvist last night for Pittsburgh, he gave up 4 goals, but 35 save shot bonus. He was kind of fine for DFS. You know what I mean? As long as Carolina doesn't fill the net, Hofer should be fine for 7,200.
Yeah. Agreed. Who are you looking for your hat trick pick?
This might be the first non-Connor Bedard Chicago Blackhawk I've named in like 3 years. Teuvo Teravainen.
Oh, if you said Nick Foligno, I was clicking.
I swear to God, I was thinking about it just to see your reaction, but
I would have just exited right out of StreamYard, and you would have just went up to the top of full screen. I'm going Clayton Keller.
All right, I like it. I do like the Utah Utes here tonight.
Yeah. We will be back on Tuesday. There's 2 games tomorrow, 1 game on Monday, 1 game on Wednesday. Great scheduling from Gary Bettman and company, but we'll be back on Tuesday, Thursday, and we'll see you then. As always, if you want to go premium, click the link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. Oh, man. I forgot I had a different hat trick pick because Tyler just said LOL. I was going to give him the one of the Russian guys on Columbus, but I forgot about Tyler. So sorry about that. Just let me know your goalie pick because you haven't let us know the past few nights and I've lost. I need a win, but we'll see everybody on Tuesday. Good luck, everybody. Win some money.
Good luck tonight, everyone.